Yeah. It's a color rush. Did we lose Kirk? Yeah. No, didn't see him. Didn't see him. All right, you guys all ready? Okay. All right, we'll jump right into Ole Miss here. 6-0, and the team is hot. So they're playing really well on the road, 11 a.m. game. And it's going to be early for us. Got a little bit of a bus ride before we get to the stadium there. So just a little bit about their offense. 40 points about a game, third in the SEC. Total offense, 490 yards or so, fourth in the SEC. Rushing offense, second, 242 yards. Passing, 248. So you can see they're balanced in what they're doing. Third downs, 53%. They're first in the SEC. So they're doing a really good job on that side of the ball. Mostly 11 personnel. They are fast tempo. So we got to be ready for that. And they're going to use, multiple players, when they're out there in their system. So everybody, you got to be aware of who's on the field. They might be doing some different things because they game plan you each and every game from what I've seen. But they snap the ball with about 20 seconds remaining on the play clock. Quarterback Jackson Dart, USC transfer, good athlete, runs the ball well, throws the ball well, really tough. Quinshawn, their running back, he's the real deal, second in the SEC. This guy's playing well, 581 yards, 8 TDs. Zach Evans, TCU transfer, really good speed, runs hard. He's 469 yards and 6 touchdowns. So these guys are a 1-2 punch. And then Jonathan Mingo, their wide receiver, 507 yards, 3 TDs. He's the top receiver in the SEC. Defensively, really very high in their stats, 5th in the SEC in total defense. Scoring defense, a little over 14 points a game. That's 3rd, 11 nationally. Rushing defense, 4th in the SEC. Passing defense, 9th. Third down defense, they're 7th in the SEC. Sacks, they've had 16. That's 3rd in the SEC. So they're getting pressure with their D-line and also just some of the pressures they're bringing. And they do a nice job with their schemes. Personnel, all 3 D-line, nickel, those guys are returning. Free safety, their strength, really is everybody all around. Their secondary is very good. Number 21, A.J. Finley, great player. Number 3, their nickel, Otis Reese, very, very good. Number 11, their middle linebacker, Austin Keys. That guy can play. So they got a couple guys that we had here before, J.J. Pegues and Ladarius Tennyson. Those guys are playing for them and doing well. So, we got to be prepared for that. Special teams-wise, they're tied for 6th in block punts. They've had 2. They're 19th in punt return. And their specialist, Jonathan Cruz, a transfer from Charlotte, 5 of 6 field goals. Frazier Mason, 42-yard average as a punter. Watkins, a transfer from Louisville. Their punt returner hit a 22-yard. That's been his longest this season. The kickoff return, Dayton Wade, transfer from Western Kentucky, averaging 23 yards. Big thing is they blocked a couple punts. So in this team, like I said, they're hot. They got a lot of things going on. They're feeling it right now. And, so a very good opponent, going to be a challenge for us as we get ready for these guys to go on the road and, again, handle the noise, handle the travel, handle all those things. And we got an early ball game. So it really comes back to us, what we have to do this week and our focus and how we get prepared to go out there and play another undefeated team. So with that, questions?
If you have a question, raise your hand and we'll call on you.
Where were you? Huh? Did I lose you?
Yeah, you're too quick for me.
I went the other way.
Jason.
Jason Caldwell, Auburn Sports. Just you guys, the importance is always there to sustain drives. How much more important is it now with defense a little banged up and what Ole Miss does on offense?
Yeah, well, it's always important, like you said. You want to keep the ball in your offensive hands, and I think that's one of the things that's hurt our defense. You go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and you got to think just on the sideline, your operation. You come over after you get done, probably playing on special teams as well. Punt return, offense gets the ball back. You go get a drink, you sit down, you make adjustments, and then if you're right back on the field. And you want to give your defense a little bit of time to rest, but really to just go through some of the adjustments that the coaches in the box are seeing. So sustaining drives is huge. Creating field position is huge. And then ultimately those drives turning into points. I mean, that's got to be something that we do a much better job of. And, that's a consistency piece of just execution over and over, giving our guys the best chance by our play calls to keep ourselves on the field, put ourselves in manageable situations. The penalties, we need to eliminate those because that creates a more difficult situation just down and distance. So it's all those factors. But you're right. We want to sustain drives, stay on the field, and really balance out the time of possession. And the one thing for Ole Miss, they go fast. I don't think, they're not going to talk about time of possession, and that's not always the key factor in the game. For us, it's just about execution. It's about staying on the field and putting the ball in a position where we can sustain those drives, execute, our third downs, create field position, and ultimately get in the red zone and find ways to score.
Does that come back to run game? Stay
Yeah.
the change,
Yeah, I think so. I think running the ball. Some of your, now you got to be able to balance it out too, throwing it. That's something, you don't want to get one dimensional. You still got to throw it. You still got to be able to hit some easy throws. You got to be able to hit some big plays. You got to be able to run the ball consistently. And like we talked about before the Georgia game, just being able to get some of those 3, 4, 5 yard gains at times too, and not the negative play. So, that comes back to us and just being better in those concepts, giving our guys the best chance to be successful by the schemes that we choose for them to go out there and run so that we can stay ahead of the chains.
Brian from AL.com. Brian, where would you say you've seen the most growth in Ashford in his couple starts, and where would you say, as you can share with us, where he could stand to improve so?
Yeah, I think every quarterback, no matter who you are throughout the season, there's some guys playing at a really high level. They can all improve and get better, right? You're going to be playing stiffer competition as the season goes on. You have more film on tape of what you're capable of doing, so more teams are trying to dial into what you do well and take that away. I think decision-making has improved overall. We put the ball on the ground. That was something we don't want to do. You want to take care of the football, but I think decision-making has gotten better. I think, just operation and you all right?
Yeah, I'm good.
You want to? I got an extra water. You want?
Yeah, please.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're making me hurt. So I think just making sure just the operation. It starts with that. You got to be able to operate. All right, and that's just a simple. And it's not that simple. Just getting the play call, getting it in, making the checks. Audibles, the things that we have to do, paying attention to the clock, making sure that we've got everything before the ball is snapped. All right, just right. And then, what I've seen from him too, like when everybody's covered, he can pull it down and go make plays. He did that in the last game. We knew that would be a thing that would hurt Georgia and really any defense too. When you got a guy where everybody's covered, he can pull it down and make some plays with his legs. We saw that from both sides. Robbie did it. We saw it from Stetson. He was able to do some things with his feet as well. So that has helped us. And now it's just not just him, but it's everybody, right? It's all the consistency across the board on the offensive side. All right. And that goes back to, us putting them in a position where those guys feel confident, they can execute the play successfully. And, like we said before, we can stay ahead of the chains and just manage the offense and make sure that we're doing those things. And then we have a chance to make some big plays. We'll do that when there's opportunities where plays break down, the scramble. I think he's made some good decisions there. And even in the last game too, there was a couple of times he threw the ball away. All right. That's not a bad choice. All right. On when he was out there, it wasn't a bad decision because there's nothing there and he was going to lose yards. So even sometimes, things don't go well. That decision, nobody likes it, but it's still the right decision. And so more experience helps guys just be better at those things.
Brian, so
Hey, Brian, thanks for writing. Seems like Ashford, when he's out in the open field, sometimes having trouble holding on to the ball. Is this kind of a mental thing for him, kind of having the yips, or the execution, or not even joking, is it the size of his hands, or?
No, I don't think so. I think, no, I don't. I think that was, when you take off and the ball just came out.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if it really just got knocked out necessarily, but the ball came out and that happens. I mean, it's, though you carry a football a certain way and as a quarterback, right, you're going to palm the ball for a minute because you are trying to throw the ball. And then at some point you're going to tuck it away. And there's that transition where you're going to go from palming the ball because now you're moving because you might throw it. So you still have that grip to then you're going to tuck it and become a runner. And just in between that transition is where the ball came out, right? I don't think He's trying to be careless with it. I think it was in that transition and the ball slipped out of his hands, right? And that's, sometimes you see a quarterback go back and throw and the ball just slips out of his hands, right? It happens sometimes at practice. You wonder why it happens. All right, I played the position. I've done the same thing. It just happens. But at the same time, all right, I mean, those are things now, so we're clear on that it happens in games, but we can't let those things happen. All right, so now it did. And we can't go back and we can't change that. All right, so now as we move forward, what is a better option? Now, when he takes off, it's probably going to be tucked a lot sooner. It's probably going to be protected better because those things happen. And unfortunately, it happens to players and they learn from that experience. It just happened to be on a drive and it impacted us. In a big game, you turn the ball over. Those things become, problematic. And, it's no different than, if you're catching the ball and you're snatching that ball and ripping it down and taking it away from the defender, right? If you're going up for it on defense and trying to take it away, it's all those things that you work on. And in the heat of the moment, it doesn't always happen perfectly, but those things, we got to learn from that. We got to take care of the ball. And so the ball security, which has been an issue for us this year, we've got to continue to keep emphasizing it. But that is the key to the game. You got to take care of the football. And every guy on this team knows that. Nobody's trying to not take care of the ball. But in order to win games and to be a good football team, that's got to be the most important thing when you have that ball in your hands. And so we'll work on it. He'll get better at it. And that will continue to be an emphasis. And I know it's important to him. So, by no means does he run off the field, shrug it off and like, oh, well, it hurts. And he's going to work very hard on that to improve in that area.
Justin Ferguson, Auburn Observer. Bryan, halfway point of the season, what do you think your team's offensive identity is? And how much of that has kind of had to change because of injuries and some other things with your personnel so far this year? Yeah,
injuries happen, unfortunately. I mean, again, that's where your depth comes in. You want to have really good depth. That's why you're building your team every year. You lose most of the time you lose a quarter of your team. You bring a quarter of your team in, right? And in the middle is where your depth's at and probably your starters and maybe some young guys. So your backups got to be ready to play and they got to go in there and they got to execute the game plan. You can't really pull back in the middle of a game. You got to keep pushing forward. I think the identity right now, I mean, we want to be balanced. We want to run the ball, throw the ball. We want to have, the play action off some of the run game. We want to be able to get on the perimeter, still be firm and be able to run downhill inside the tackles, and really try to be balanced as much as we can, utilize our personnel. And so that hasn't changed. Now, have we been very good at that at this point? Are we where we want to be right now? We're not. But that's what our identity is. So we're still working on building that identity. We have the vision for it, but we got to actually do it. And I think the game plans, I think what we put together each week, you don't get to every single play. Sometimes the game changes and you don't get to all the plays you had in there. You don't get to every single thing that you wanted to get to because maybe you're not in that field position. You're not in that down and distance. You can bump it up, but you really game plan that for that moment. And so, that's where sustaining drives, that's where getting more plays, that's where keeping the offense on the field is going to allow us more to get into that rhythm. And if you watched a few of our drives this season early on, the LSU drive, some of those drives, like that's what you want it to look like. And I thought there was good balance in there, and we want to continue that.
Montgomery advertising. You held LSU to only 85 passing yards first half. Stetson Bennett last week only 25 passing yards. What stood out to you about the progression or growth of the secondary that passing so well the past couple weeks?
Yeah, I think those guys are they're flying around. Number one, I think they're around in coverage around the receivers, right? They're not giving those guys many opportunities just to be wide open or cutting a guy loose. So we've gotten better at that. I think our D-line, I think some of the pressures too that we've put on the quarterbacks has helped, where they're not just standing back there and able to just, scan the whole field and wait for a guy to open up. So I do think it's a combination of, getting to the quarterback and then also your secondary doing a good job. And on some of the scramble stuff too, we're plastering better, we're covering better, we're getting better in the back end. And I think that's one of the reasons why, we've been able to maybe have some of those numbers. Now at the same time, you still got to stop the run, right? So you want to be balanced on defense too. Okay, not give up the big plays, so we're doing a good job there, but at the same time, making sure that we're handling the run game.
Justin Otis from Auburn Live. How did you when you watch Robbie go through some of those frustrations against a very good defense like Georgia, and he's a competitor, and you see him on the sideline, and he throws his helmet a little bit. How do you handle those emotions, maybe compared to how you would deal with Bo last year, or a more experienced quarterback where Robbie's kind of been thrust into a situation where he's learning on the go? But how are you dealing with his emotions when he's going through that?
Yeah, well, I think that's got to be really the same for, where we want to be, that quarterback. And, you're the quarterback of the team. You're the leader. Things get hard. Guys get frustrated. All right. But at the same time, you got to come back and you got to go get ready for the next drive. All right. And the process for a quarterback is when the drive is over, all right, you go over, get a drink, you get on the phone, you start talking about adjustments, you start thinking about what the next series is going to look like. And then if you got a little bit of time, go get your guys fired up. Go tell them, hey, we're going to go down and score, whatever that is, or keep scoring, or let's get back in the game, whatever that needs to be. And, I think just in your preparation, like that's where the emotion in a game, if you've prepared properly and you've experienced some of those things, which he's experiencing right now, it's just a matter of getting a few more plays and you're right back into it, right? You're going to have 75 plays, right? Score on 5 of them. Out of all those plays, right? You need 5 explosive plays, 5 big plays. So you don't know when they're coming. And, that's the reality of playing that position too. Well, hey, that drive didn't go well. We've been 3 and out 4 times in a row. Come back, bang, hit a big shot, touchdown. All right, could come right back again, bang, hit another big shot, touchdown. We get a big run. Jarquez Hunter breaks 3 tackles and runs for a touchdown. We didn't expect that on a 5-yard throw. And that's really that type of thinking that you have to have. And I think that's, the emotion of the game, that's part of it. At the same time, you still got to think. And you got to keep yourself, in a state of mind where you can go out there and execute, because that will affect you too. And that's not just him, that's really everybody. And trying to get that taught, it comes from experience, comes from, guys trusting in what we're doing and making sure that their preparation through the week is they understand, like, look, we're close. So I think that's one thing too. When you go out there and the play isn't executed right, or whatever happens on the play, it didn't work. Maybe they out schemed us, but you understand why. And it's like, okay, I got that. Let's come back to that next time, or let's move away from that, or let's hit this play that's close to that. That's going to give us an advantage. You got to be thinking in those terms. Otherwise the emotion takes over and you're not thinking. And in order to win a game, you got to think through 60 minutes. You got to really be dialed into what you have to do, especially at that position. So he's learning, sometimes, hey guys, there's a fire in every competitor. And so there's moments in there like, look, hey, if you're upset, then you got to take a second. But that's where over time that will go away. That will go away in the process coming off, score, get over there, same process, get on the phone, make adjustments, talk to your team, think about what you have to do, get ready, get the ball back and go.
Bryan, what do you think when you guys look at the film? What are some of the biggest factors you think are kind of limiting Tank getting ahead of steam at the line of scrimmage? And just an overall coaching philosophy for you, just how do you guys go about adjusting and improving like run blocking over the course of the season when you have some of the injuries you've had on the offensive line?
Yeah, well, penetration slows the backs down, right? And depending on the run scheme, whatever it is, there's different schemes in there, but you don't want to give up penetration. I think that's what's happened to us at times. As far as adjusting, I mean, it's a fundamental. Blocking is a fundamental of the game, probably the most important one. And, that goes back to your footwork, goes back to your aiming points, goes back to what the defense is trying to do to you. And it goes back to just how you prepare yourself each and every week, how we get our guys prepared. And, part of that is what we do when we are in pads every Tuesday and Wednesday. We're working on the run game and working on what we think the defense is going to try to give us. So, we got to be better up front. You don't want to give up penetration. It's not always that you're moving and denting that defense all the time, but it gives your backs a chance when they can get to the line of scrimmage and be able to see and find a window. And sometimes it's 2 yards, 4 yards, and then you get some really good push. It can be 8, it can be 18, it can be big runs. But that's the key to what we have to do up front is just not give up penetration, get those backs a chance to get started, and they'll do something with it.
Well, Bryan, I guess on the theme of offensive line, when you look at the group, the injuries, I guess, like, what are some things that can be done when you maybe don't have the talent you like? Your other different schemes you can do? Like, what are some things you kind of do to get it working without giving up game plan, obviously?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can do different things with, and I think we do that. It's not because of talent. All right. I think that's the number one thing. You're going to run your schemes based off what you think is best against the defense that you're playing. And then you have some of the schemes that you believe in, right? There's a philosophy that we have in the run game, all right, which is probably similar to quite a few teams. You see a lot of the same schemes, right? You see a lot of the same things in the NFL and in the run game. And, you know, maybe it's a little bit different when you have a quarterback that can run. You got a couple guys you can get the ball to on fly sweeps. You know, there's different ways to do it. But ultimately, I mean, your run game is going to come down to, you know, what your guys do up front and the fundamentals of how they play and block. And then, you know, working together on the double teams, working in the one-on-one situations. And I think knowing when you're in that situation is the key. Do I got help or am I single? You know, that's the difference, right? And when you got some help, it's a little bit different of how you treat your footwork. When you don't have help, all right, it's a one-on-one. And then a lot of times on the O-line, you got to win the one-on-one is what it comes down to. So we got guys that can do that, all right? They're not perfect. We got to help them, and there are some things we can do schematically that can help them, all right? And we know that. And so we got to do a better job of putting them in positions to be successful. And at the same time, you know, you still have to go out there and play. You still got to go out there and execute those assignments, which our guys will do. All right, they will do that. And there were some good things that we did do, but now we got to get all 11 guys doing that together. And I think that's the key moving forward is really focusing on that. But our guys, they work very hard at it. They'll get better at it. We're not where we need to be, but we got to go back to work this week and improve in those areas.
Anything else? Mark?
Yeah, can you remember back to last year's Ole Miss game? It looks to me the lot better on defense than a year ago.
Well, they were pretty good last year as well. They are better. I mean, it's, again, they have made improvements. You can see, I think the guys are playing with confidence. I think they're playing fast. I think they're physical on that side of the ball. I think they're tackling well. And just look at the stats. I mean, it shows up with that right there. I mean, it's pretty good from what I've seen. And, you know, like I said, I mean, they're on a roll right now. All right. They got momentum. And so I think that impacts really the whole team. And certainly as we look at it, you know, their offense, you know, we know they're going to do well on that side of the ball, and they're going to have, you know, a lot of firepower over there. And defensively, they're also very, very good. And that's something that we've seen. I felt like that last year. I thought we played a good game against them last year. I thought we did some really good things in the game, and we were balanced, and we had the run and pass and all that stuff, you know, at least in that one game working for us. But overall, they've definitely improved. And, you know, this is a good football team. That's why they're undefeated.
All right, Coach. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You guys have a good day.